side. So we are starting to get to where we're below double figures, and I think we're starting to make a difference. But we still got a long ways to go. Let's get to the agenda. First thing I want to do is call on Vice Chairman Pettis for the approved minutes.
Mr. Chairman, a copy of the minutes are on our iPads, but I have read over those minutes. I haven't found any problems. Mr. Chairman, I move for their approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Let's move on. Next thing is to confirm County Board of Equalization vacancies, 3 county vacancies plus an alternate. Current terms to end April of 22. We have 3 applicants. They are, just a second, Dan Alcorn, Della Goodman, and Greg Tucker. So are all those here? Okay. Gentlemen, we have 3 vacancies and we had 3 applicants. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we forward all 3 names to the full commission.
Got a motion? Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Congratulations, gentlemen and ladies. Next on the list is our litigation list. Is there, it's on your iPad. Do any of y'all have any questions concerning this? Since there is none, let's move on. Next is our HR report. Ms. Stevenson. I'm trying to break the record.
Good evening. I placed the report at each of your desks. For the month of February, we've had 5 different ADA requests, whether it be translations, interpretations, or accommodations. So we had 5 of those. Personnel changes, that would be somebody who was promoted, demoted, those type things. We had 7. Let me make sure. Yes, that would have been the promotions, demotions, or 120-day re-entries. If somebody's retired and they come back to work for the county, after retirement, they have to complete a personnel change. Audits, we didn't have any audits in the month of February, but we will be having them in March for our elections department, because we'll start having poll workers and election workers coming on to make sure that all their records are complete. As far as the benefits go, we had 14 of those. That would be for EAP referrals, anybody who needs grief assistance, sick leave donations, somebody who needs assistance completing Social Security or Medicare, those type things. Community involvement, we had 4 different events. Chamber Visitor Bureau event, Main Street, Read to Succeed, and Tennessee Achieves. Myself and my assistant director in the office, we both mentor with Tennessee Achieves. I've done it for the last 11 years, and she's done it for, I think, the last 5. And so we mentor those high school students that are going to be going on to college. We had 127 participants at the meal packing event. We had that was it last Saturday? Saturday before last, the 26th, Saturday before last, meal packing. And I don't want to steal Mayor Ketron's thunder, but we packed 66,500 plus meals at that event, and that will go back into the community to feed those individuals who do not have the means to get the nutrition and the food that they need. We made sure that they went to the nonprofits. We tried to find agencies throughout the entire county from end to end to make sure that these meals went to. So we had 127 employees participate in that, and elected officials, commissioners participate in that event. We have 68 active FMLA requests for this month, 5 extended leaves, and we had 15 COVID leaves, a military, OJI, and a personal leave, for a total of 93 leave requests in the month of February. Legal services, we had 10, whether that be an ADA request and personnel complaints and those type things. We had 69 employees we had 33 employees to leave us in the month of February, but we also did exit interviews with those employees as well. Onboarding, we had 39 new hires, and we had 36 new volunteers in our fire and our PAWS department. Policy change, we did updates or revisions to job descriptions. Every time we post a position, we make sure that the job description is still compliant with what they're doing. Technology changes, process changes, those type things. We had one special promotion through Habitat Restore for our employee population. We received 236 applications and conducted 68 interviews for the month of February. We completed 167 different reports, whether it was background checks, exit interviews, new hire reporting, salary evaluations, those type things. Special projects, we had 16. We did working on a project with our military. There's 12 different employees that we're looking at for military evaluation, which is the bulk of that. Evaluation and testing, we had 101 different employment tests. Could be for TB, hepatitis. These are physicals, pre-employment type testing. Title VI, we had 22 requests for languages in our court system and also for the services that we provide. Currently, the county has about 30 different languages that we provide services for. And we conducted supervisor training for 9 different department heads. And that is my report for this month.
And how many job openings do we have right now? Not counting the sheriff's department? I
didn't count those this afternoon before I came. I know they posted 2 positions today, but I can't remember how many. We've got about 14 postings, I believe, but I'm not positive. 14? I think that's right.
We got any questions for Ms. Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sonia, on the exit interviews, I'm not going to ask specifics about the theme of the exit interviews, but how are those routed among heads of the departments? Just walk me through the process of once an exit interview is complete, how that information is circulated and who sees it?
So, first of all, you have to know who we do the exit interviews on. If somebody is terminated by the county for cause or for disciplinary or whatever, those individuals are not given an exit interview. These are only individuals who resign and who are leaving because they're not retiring. Some people are retiring, and we know that that's why they're leaving, so it's not really about the others. But Lindsay in my office does the exit interviews. When we can get, obviously we can't make people do an exit interview with us, and so we don't get a ton of participation for the exit interviews. And what happens is when we have a series of questions, and then there's open-ended questions. If something is mentioned in there, it will, create a follow-up question. If there's something related to the department that it's a process or a conflict with another employee, a supervisor, then I will take that information and share that with the department head. If it is, a lot of times it's to go to a different position. We found most of ours are either that they're going to, let me see, and they may have even put it on this list, either that they are going back to school, that they're moving out of town, they've taken a new job. I've got my list right here. Put it on here. Yeah, she didn't put it on here this time. So we mail them out. If we know in advance, if a department knows that somebody's going to be leaving in 2 weeks, we will reach out to them and ask them to come in and sit down for a face-to-face interview, because we feel like those are the better results. If we can sit down and talk to somebody, look them in the eye, ask some follow-up questions. If we don't get notice enough in advance, then we send a letter to them to their address, and we send it to them in hard copy, but we also send it to them electronically to their personal email. And so if it's something about pay or hours, they signed up for the job and they didn't realize that they might change shifts, or they've had a family situation that changed. So majority of the time it's to go into a different field. It's not usually for the same, not always for the same field. Sometimes it is. And sometimes it is about pay and benefits and those type things. If you needed more information, do you need me to bring more information in the future? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You getting any response on the second round of regarding the finance director?
I have one additional applicant for an applicant out of Texas, and that's it. The posting comes down on the 10th.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Next is our private act to establish a Rutherford County Board of Juvenile Detention Center Commissioners. Gentlemen, I sent you all an email giving you a blueprint as to what we're going to do as introducing a private act on this. We've talked about it, and one of the things that we need to discuss is, you've seen that in my email I had asked for the mayor to be chairman and 4 commissioners. Commissioners does not mean county commissioners, it just means board members. So as steering, we need to talk about the makeup of what we want to do here. So we need to know what type of 4 applicants do we want to be on this board? And first of all, do you agree with this board? Because I would like to see us vote tonight on whether to accept this and change the private act. And if not, then I'd like to open this up for discussion. So does anybody want to discuss this as to the makeup of what this board can be? Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I have talked to those who are interested in running for this position, and they seem to be in agreement that they would like to see this structure in place. It's basically patterned after the same structure that we have at the Correctional Work Center, that whoever is mayor chairs that board. It meets once a month. It just gives an extra buffer or layer, if you will, for Ms. Duke or whoever the director would be in the future to work with on a monthly basis to bounce things off of, let them know what deficiencies they may have in the building as far as security, HVAC. Just like today, we met at the Correctional Work Center, found out that because of the fire that we had over at the jail where the dryers caught on fire, well, the workhouse is picked up, and now they're bringing all the blankets and sheets and soiled clothes and everything else from the jail over to the workhouse. And of course, they have the manpower to do it, but they're doing it, but it's putting a strain on those washing machines, and they're about $10,000 a piece, the washing machines and the dryers. So those are cases in times past. The workhouse has done things for juvenile and vice versa. And juveniles, they don't have the large commercial machines over juvenile, but they do have some that they would have to use in a pinch. So it's all just kind of coordinating, and it's not to the point. Some were concerned that this board would be actually getting involved with the cases of what the judge had already sentenced these juveniles to, and that is not the case. This is just kind of helping run the facility itself. So, the judge has the power over that, and this board would not be interfering with that direction. And talking to Ms. Duke, I asked her personally, would she be in favor of that, and she welcomed that as well. So I open it up for discussion now, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commissioner Reed and then Commissioner Cush.
Mr. Chairman, I have served on public safety for 8 years. Part of the time as vice chairman, and then for the past 4 years I've served as chairman of that committee. And this is part of something that we work with. This is what reports to us that comes from the juvenile detention. But it seems like what is reported to us is something that is very basic, something that we know very little about, other than the fact is how many are out there, how many are there. We receive a report based upon what counties are sending juveniles to us and how much they are paying. And that's pretty much what we have. As far as knowing further about the operation or anything of that type, we just don't have that much information that's received to us. But yet, with the correctional center that we have, when the superintendent comes here and makes his report, we have a little bit more. We know what's going into that center out there that is being foot by the citizens of Rutherford County. And it's just a little bit better report of the commissioners knowing the operation and how it works there. And it's operated by the board. So I have thought myself over the past several years that I wish that the Juvenile Detention Center also had a board similar to this, where I think we would have a better understanding, we'd have a better knowledge of how it is in operation, what they are doing, what's going on, and not having anything really to do with as far as what the judicial part of it is involving and going that direction, but yet knowing pretty much the same operation as what we have in the Correctional Work Center. And I think this is a good idea, that we go to a board operation there, that when we have the individual that comes from there to address us, to explain to us what's going on, we have a little more detailed report that comes back to the commission and comes back to that Public Safety Committee. And I just think this is a very proper way to go to it, because, you know, I think that would be the eyes and the information of what this commission is needing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couldn't agree more. Mr. Cush?
Just some questions just to help me understand.
All right.
And Pettis may have cleared one of those up. So the head of the Juvenile Detention Center, right, does he report to Public Safety?
Yes.
Okay, but did I understand that he just kind of tells you about population in and out and what other counties are doing? He's not asking questions about...
It's a she.
I'm sorry. She's not asking about building wants and needs, things like that. That's still, as of right now, over on the judge's side, right? They're still doing that. So why couldn't we just take the building part away from the judges, like we talked about last meeting, and give that to the head of juvenile, and she then report to Public Safety? Instead of having a committee or a board, she just report the wants and needs to the committee, Public Safety Committee, or the commission, instead of having to form a board.
Well, I think, Commissioner Cush, one of the reasons that I brought this up is because we want to have more transparency. So we feel like with the board, we'd be able to know more, because Chairman Reed, he gets a report every month, and he feels it's very vague and ambiguous, and we want to make sure that there's more eyes and ears on running the Juvenile Detention Center. Ms. Duke will she will still give her report, but we kind of wanted to run it like the work center. And I think a lot of the commissioners that I spoke to about this kind of feel that we'd like to see a little bit more transparency. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go ahead and tell you how I feel about it. Is I think that as a county commissioner, these things are on us. We are the ones who are picked and elected to be leaders in this community and to know the stuff that's going on. I'm not going to sit here and say we have nothing to do with judicial. That has nothing to do with that. So everybody keeps coming to me acting like I could have done something different with Judge Davenport, and that's not true. There's not. We can't do on that. That's judicial. But we can also get a better understanding how to run in this. And I'll give you an example. One of the things, and I'm not picking on anybody, but one of the things was there were some juveniles that were going to be housed at the sheriff's office. Okay, that's an adult center. Well, you can't have any adults with juveniles. Whether it's right or wrong, the fact of the matter is we had somebody that could have advised on that. We had somebody that could have advised on that. Because, you know, the sheriff's department was threatening a lawsuit because they didn't want juveniles in the adult center. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm just telling you that as a board, we would be able to have more understanding of that, and they could have, you know, reported to the commissioners on it. So I'm just wanting to have more transparency. I'd like to know more about what's going on. I agree with Commissioner Reed. I think the reports they're very vague. I agree with him 100% on that. But what I want to know is, number one, if you're for this, and number two, what is our makeup going to be? Do we want attorneys? Do we want people in education? Do we want judicial advocates? These are the areas that I want to talk about, but I want to open this up because, I mean, your opinion means a whole lot to me. And I hope I answered your question.
Well, can I follow up?
Sure.
So this board that you're proposing, is it just the building proper? Roof, bricks, mortar, heat and air, things like that, totally taken away from the actual juvenile detention legal side of the equation?
Well, I tell you what.
Are you peeling the two apart? Because my confusion is, a board. If you appoint a board, I can understand that just for the building part, the wants and needs of the building, but that board shouldn't have anything to do with the legal side. What qualifications does a board that we appoint have to do with understanding the rules and regulations of housing juveniles?
No. Okay, here's how I want to do this. Let's answer Commissioner Cush. First of all, I want to go to the county attorney, explain to them what this is, explain to them what the duties are, all right, and answer Commissioner Cush's question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think the best analogy to make is what we have already here with our sheriff's office in the jail. The sheriff has no say-so in modifying or otherwise making a decision to release somebody in contravention of a court order. His duty is to make sure that any individuals that are sentenced to a term of confinement to the jail are appropriately housed and confined. That's his job. Similarly, we have a juvenile detention center that is akin to a jail, such that when the juvenile court judge makes a decision as to a juvenile to serve a certain length of time of confinement, they are thereafter placed into the custody of the detention center. And that detention center is currently overseen by the director, who reports to the judge who ordered the juvenile to be detained. What this makeup does is it somewhat separates the two, similar to how Judge Ishod or Judge Bennett, one of our general sessions judges, might issue an order saying you have to go serve 30 days in jail. That order goes over to Sheriff Fitzhugh at the jail, who then has to follow that and receive the inmate and detain them for that period of time. Here, there would still be a juvenile court judge issuing an order of confinement. It would go to the detention center, and we would house the juvenile. This board, in addition, the way I understand it, in addition to managing the building, as you said, and needing roof repairs and HVAC, they have the authority to appoint and dismiss the director. So they've got oversight over the director. The director is going to be reporting to that board. The board is going to have to approve the internal standard operating procedures, which I have not sat on the workhouse, but I think that board approves the internal processes of the day-to-day operations of the workhouse. They're not, the board members don't develop those. They rely on the staff members and the director and superintendent to put those together, and then they're thereafter presented to the board, who ultimately approve those. So in terms of the micromanaging of the day-to-day affairs, I don't think the intent is for this board to do that, but it is to, in addition to managing the physical structure of the detention center, it is to provide some level of oversight and authority over the director, who would report to that board, and therefore kind of give a hand of that board in the day-to-day operations to some extent.
don't think we can substitute the board for public safety. Two different entities, right?
I believe
If
so.
I-
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you do that and you put the detention center underneath the umbrella of one of our already existing standing committees, you're essentially placing the juvenile detention center under the auspices of the county commission. And I don't, at least talking to Chairman Harris and the mayor, the idea is to move it away from the commission and have a board of individuals who are competent, not saying that county commissioners are not competent, but that may be well-versed in juvenile detention center matters, similar to how the workhouse board members are.
Okay, all right.
Makes sense?
Yeah. I guess that's my concern is who do you appoint as board members that have the knowledge of the laws and regulations of juvenile detention?
With any other board, similar to the Workhouse Board, CCRC, it would go through our typical appointment process were this to be passed by the General Assembly, because remember, it's a private act, so it's got to go up to Nashville, then it's got to come back here for ratification before we can ever fill the spots on the board. But I think that the way that this is written is it's the county commission that approves or appoints the members, and people would apply and they would go through the steering committee process, how we do with regular board and committee members, and that panel would ask them their qualifications. Have you been in detention services? Have you been in correctional services? Have you been a social worker? Anything that the board might find that would make the person a good fit for the board. And then it would go to the county commission, who would ultimately approve that person.
All right, well, one last question. The correctional, on the sheriff's side, and the correctional, adult correction, you say they have a board?
No, they do not. I was just using that to show a distinction between where a judicial order starts and where it ends with the sheriff, and how the two are separate.
Well, I thought you said we have a similar board in place.
We do for the workhouse.
For the workhouse, okay. Looking at that history of that board, does that board tend to speed things up, or does that board tend to slow processes down?
That would probably be a question for your superintendent of the workhouse, because I don't know the answer to that.
Because from personal experience on boards, to me, boards tend to bog the process down rather than to speed things up. That's my only concern.
Well, I think one of the things I want to discuss, Chairman, is the makeup of who would be on this board. I feel that we need an attorney on this board. I think we need someone who's associated with Juvenile. I also think somebody in education. I think we need to look in those things. And that's something that we as a committee, a steering committee, can vet and make sure that happens. So I'm going to call on two people right there. I'm going to give Lynn Duke a chance to speak also, but I want to go ahead and let the mayor, and then if you'd like to, Ms. Duke.
But let me share with you who is currently on the workhouse board. Whoever is the sitting mayor is the chairman of the workhouse board, Correctional Work Center board. Then you have Bob Asbury, a former detention captain at the Sheriff's Department, retired. David Puckett, retired assistant district attorney. Frances Mosby, her husband, I think, was Murfreesboro Police Department forever. And Tom Hartley, and Tom has been on there 30 years, I think, when he was first appointed, but he was a principal representing Rutherford County Department of Education. So you had a good community mix of people representing that board. Classic example of what can come before Ms. Duke to make a decision is that the judge called Adam Dodd just this past week and asked him or told him that she wanted to move a wall. And so he comes to me and says the judge wants to move a wall. And so she tells Lynn Duke, I want to move that wall for whatever her purposes are. And I'm going, well, she's leaving. Shouldn't we wait till the new person is elected to that position to see if they want the wall moved? They may want to keep it the way it is. Those are all the type of issues that would come up, and let the board decide what to do with the county's building, and make sure that the Public Safety Committee, are moving a wall may or may not be an easy thing. If it's If it's a weight-bearing wall, it might be a major issue, and it's not in the budget. You know, but we go over the Correctional Work Center Board budget every month, making sure that they're on track. They don't have to come back to public safety and ask for more money, et cetera. And they get approval of the minutes, they get approval of the budget, the director's report. He gives a wrap of everything that's happening inside that facility.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to suspend the rules. Ms. Duke, would you like to speak on this matter?
Okay, good evening. I guess the first thing I want to say is that there has always been an open invitation for anyone who is a commissioner to come and tour our facility, to visit, to ask questions for many, many years. Judge Davenport, as well as the other departments that are in that building, had open houses. And I've seen some of you come down to it, but not all. The building had, at one time, 5 separate independent departments in it. Therefore, no one handles the actual facility maintenance. Rutherford County maintenance has always been the go-to as far as the actual physical facility. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with the fact that our reports are not detailed. I may not speak on each and every individual item, but my reports are 5 pages long. It's more than just population and who's being detained. We talk about who has graduated, who has taken what classes, and I always ask for any questions, since we turn those reports in early and all of the commissioners have an opportunity to read those reports in detail, and if they have questions, I will always answer them. We will happily welcome any type of board if the commission sees fit. We can work with anybody. I don't know if you have specific questions that you'd like to ask. Those are the main things that I wanted to say tonight. I don't know if you have anything that you specifically want to ask, though.
Sure. Is there any questions? Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Ms. Duke. I had a couple of questions for you. Has anybody asked you to provide more information?
There have been, the last time that I was asked to provide more detailed information on our monthly report was when the commissioner was Commissioner Farley. He's the last one to ask me to add something, and I did at that time.
Okay, and then you kind of already answered my question, but you'd be okay with us establishing a board if the commission decides to do that, and you be under the supervision of the board instead of currently, I suppose, you're under the supervision of the juvenile judge.
That's correct. We don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Rather?
With this board, do you think that will benefit you as a director? Would that board be able to bring comments or suggestions or resources that is going to help you in your job? Or is it just going to be another meeting you have to go to that interrupts your month?
I think there are potential benefits to having the board. I think it's always a good idea when people are educated about departments and what they do. There is a lack of understanding about how the juvenile court process works. And so I think, as just with any other board, the quality of the board members will make or break the scenario.
And Chairman Harris, if I don't know if Nick said this, I think one of y'all did, or the mayor may have, this board can fire her and hire somebody else? Did
Yes.
I misunderstand that?
No, you're correct.
And you understand that, right?
I've got 1 year to retirement, so
Well,
I think we can handle it.
I'm just saying, you know, it's kind of a weight for me that I'm going to vote for people, F-O-R, to be on a board that could have personality conflict with you and you're out, or whoever's in your position. And congratulations on 1 year from
Thank you.
retirement.
We had a discussion the other day, and I've been blessed to be able to work with all 4 of the finance directors that the county has had, all the way back to Matlock, Randall Matlock. I have had discussions with previous directors of the Correctional Work Center, and they have discussed with me the stress that they were under when they weren't on the same page as some of their board members. I think everybody understands that whether you work with or report to one person or several, you know, doing the best that you can do is always going to be important, and I don't think that'll be an issue.
Commissioner Rather, Ms. Duke, and I don't know when she's wanting to retire or when she does, but the board would be able to have a qualified group that could hire a new director. And I'm not saying, my problem that I'm having with this with your comment is, do you feel that the workhouse board works? Because I know you being in that area, and you are in public safety, do you not feel that that board is beneficial to Supervisor Cope?
I do.
Okay.
Now, to kind of bounce off that comment is, I understood, based on Chairman Cush's questions, that this board was mainly facilities, HVAC, brick and mortar. I think it's the word you used. So my confusion, I'm not against this board. I have a follow-up question about what do we pay them, if anything, but if it's about a building and brick and mortar and moving walls and a leaking roof, why do the board members have to have or should have some experience with juveniles or education? It seems like you would want somebody that had some maintenance experience, a contractor or facilities maintenance, whatever, facilities management degree or whatever. I'm having a hard time separating the day-to-day operations dealing with juveniles that a judge is in control of. Y'all do what she says, he or she says. Just like sheriff, if a judge puts an order out to go pick up somebody, the actual paper says, bring that body. It doesn't say alive, it just says bring that body to the sheriff's office. And you're to put hands on them and bring them in. So I guess I'm confused, as you're under the direction of a judge. But my understanding is there needs to be a board to help with moving that wall or fixing that leaking roof. So it just seems to me you would need to be a facilities manager or maintenance or contractor and have that kind of experience. Because if we put a board in there, I don't understand why they would have to have experience with juveniles or education or whatever.
I'll answer that question. And then, Ms. Duke, you can come in. Number one of the things that this board will do is provide her with a safety net. And let me explain what I mean by that. If she is told to do something by a judge and she doesn't think it's right, then she could come to this board for consult with this board as to whether we can do some on that, whether we can help her on that. And we've seen that happen, so we know that happens. And Ms. Duke would have, you know, if she feels that something is, that she feels it's something that she doesn't think's right, she can come to this board, and this board can counsel her on that. So, you see where I'm talking about on that, or? I mean, do you want me to go in detail on what I'm talking about? Okay, because I'm just saying that this, you know, we have policies in the juvenile court as well. And Nick, would this not help on some of the policies?
If there are any court policies from a judge, those control, right? So if there's judicial orders or proclamations that say that juveniles have to be dealt with in a certain way, that's a judge's order, okay? That's different from how Ms. Duke and her facility get medical care to a juvenile, how they deal with separating two juveniles from fighting with each other, how they deal with the types of reading materials that can come in the juvenile detention facility, how the educational programming is structured for juveniles that are in the facility. Those topics, I think the idea and intent behind the board is that the board oversees those aspects of it. To Chairman Harris's point, if there is some sort of judicial order that is issued and the director has an issue with it, I'm sure that she could bring it to the board's attention, and by maybe sheer political influence, changes could be made if there's a true concern with how that's going to affect the day-to-day operations of the facility itself.
Okay. You good, Ms. Duke?
Yes, I'm good. I would just like to, when this is all said and done, things to be clarified, as in if there is a board who has an attorney on it, do we still contact the county attorney's office? Who outranks who? These are the things that I would need to know.
County attorney would outrank anybody.
Just to that point, Chairman, yeah, well, so you're still an agent of the county. It's still a county agency. And so if there are legal questions that you have, I mean, Lynn called me last week on a question about something, and we talked. I think Chairman Harris's point was similar to how the workhouse has a retired public defender. Maybe having somebody that isn't advising the board legally with questions, that would be the county attorney's job. But having that person that might have that background, similar to Commissioner Stevens, who's a lawyer, having that on the board might be a useful resource for you, particularly one that's been with the PD's or the DA's office.
Answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion to proceed with this to the full commission to change our private act? I have a motion by Commissioner Reed. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second for Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner McAdoo.
Fellow commissioners, we are talking about a delicate situation here, and I myself personally would not feel comfortable in appointing a board person, the sheriff, anybody, until I write up this procedure and go through it and let this federal judge or appellate judge that heard our lawsuit look it over and offer an opinion. Because I don't want myself to be waking up seeing that we done something that we don't have a legal law, a legal leg to stand on. Now, I think that maybe we can ask a judge, fellow judge, or whatever, that looked at this lawsuit, give us an opinion. That's myself. That's what I'm thinking. Before we proceed to go any further to the commission or whatever. Now, I could be wrong, but in a lawsuit case like we just came out of, I think his opinion would be greatly appreciated.
Nick?
Yeah, Commissioner McAdoo, that's a fair consideration, not one that I thought of, and I'm just kind of digesting it. I guess one concern that I might have is that case is concluded. It is done and it's over with, and there was no, while there was a small injunction that was put in place that dealt specifically with how children are to be admitted to the facility, it was not some broad and detailed injunction. And the reason I bring that up is my concern would be, now that the case is closed, raising another issue with the court to maybe reopen the case, which I don't think would be in the county's best interest. Now, to your point, Commissioner, I did look at statewide if there were any other similar makeups that is being trying to get accomplished here. And there is, out in East Tennessee, there are 5 or 6 counties that are sister counties that have an interlocal agreement amongst themselves whereby they established a regional board of directors for the, I think it's called the East Tennessee Juvenile Detention Facility. I might be not naming that correctly, but that's close enough. And by interlocal agreement, they all agreed to fund a single detention center. Now, I don't know the court makeup over there, but I imagine that they have juvenile court judges that are separate and apart from that and adjudicate juveniles who would thereafter be detained in that facility that is overseen by that regional board. Interestingly enough, that regional board contracts out to a private company to oversee the facility and the building and the detention of the juveniles. So while that's not completely analogous to what is the intent behind this, it does show that there's been at least some precedent for the establishment of a public board to oversee the facility.
Any other questions? Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner McAdoo, before you can go see a judge, there has to be some kind of controversy. We would have to file a lawsuit against someone for like a declaratory judgment or to that effect, and I'm not sure that we can do that against ourselves, just to go ask the judge for an opinion on whether something is legal. That's why we have the county attorney, and we rely on his opinion. If the state legislature approves our private act, then I think we're good. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do this or wouldn't do this for us. I feel comfortable having the board and moving forward, sending this to the full commission. Now, I do want to ask a question about the motion. Is there any mention in there about who's going to be on this board, or is this just sending the concept on? Because that's what I understand the motion to be at the moment.
Nick?
Yeah, my 2 cents, but it's the will of the commission. So if you wanted to proceed down the route now, you can. So there's nothing prohibiting you from talking about the makeup of the board. But my 2 cents would be start first with the approval of the private act to get it up to Nashville, get it approved by the General Assembly, which is going to take a couple months, and then it's going to have to come back down here for ratification. And then at that point, you'll know that you've got a law and you've got offices that can be filled.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Concerning a couple of months, there's not enough time for a couple of months. They're planning to sine die sometime around Easter. So it would have to be at this month's full commission meeting, and I would concur that not to establish the individuals on our positions on that board, whether it be 5 or 7, I would just go with the private act, get it up there to them. It doesn't have to be calendared because bill cutoff is back in February, but all private acts, they would have to enter it into system, and then it would start traveling in both houses, and probably without objection, get approval before they come home. But it needs to happen quickly.
Mayor, if I could just, you said something that I totally think that's right, that maybe not picking John Doe and Jane Doe now to get on it's a little premature, but I would say that you want to make sure that what is being sent up there is the final version. And
Correct.
so the board might want to determine
5 positions,
five
or 7
positions,
positions,
if it's
or
7,
whatever
we
that
need
may
to
be.
determine that now.
Correct.
As it's currently written, it has 4 separate individuals, and then the mayor being the 5th.
Correct. It's not in the structure.
Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest instead of putting in the private act what type of person constitutes each member of the board, that we put a section in there, which I did not see when I read it, that would simply allow the county commission to make regulations about who serves on the board and their qualifications. And that way, if we can't get an attorney or we can't get a teacher or whatnot, then the commission can change that if we need to without having to send it back to Nashville again to get the private act changed.
I agree.
So I would offer an amendment to the motion to insert a section that says that the commission can promulgate rules and regulations about the board members and their qualifications.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a second. Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner McAdoo?
Since we can't get the judges to look at it and offer an opinion, what about the other lawyers that we had hired? Can they offer an opinion? Can they look at it?
I'm happy to offer that opinion right here, because I helped draft this private act. In examining this and knowing that in East Tennessee there's already precedent for this, and then also that if it goes up to Nashville and gets to prove, it's presumptively constitutional by the fact that the General Assembly has passed it. And they should have lawyers looking at this too, because they don't want to face the threat of a lawsuit for having passed an unconstitutional law. So just like with anything, can I say it's 100% foolproof? No, I cannot. But if I look at the totality of the circumstances and also the TCA on this, I feel reasonably confident that this is a permissible way to do an oversight board, particularly in light of the TCA's governing the detention of juveniles that say that they can be housed in a facility that is under the direction or supervision of the court, by a private agency approved by the court, or, quote, other public authority. And I think that this private act is that attempt to establish a public oversight authority, a board, to oversee the detention of juveniles at the facility.
Good, Commissioner? Okay, we got a motion for an amendment from Commissioner Stevens, which stipulates the type of, we can, say it again, Commissioner Stevens.
My amendment was to add a provision to the draft private act that was sent out to us, and that the addition would say that the county commission promulgates the rules and regulations about the qualifications of the board members for this juvenile oversight board.
Okay, and Commissioner McAdoo seconded it. So go ahead, Rachel, we're going to vote on this. This is on the amendment.
Commissioner Cush?
No.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Now, we're voting on the amended motion to send this to the county commission and have the private act changed. Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, gentlemen, this, Commissioner Reed.
I was going to say something just before I made the motion, and we moved on pretty rapidly there, but all of us received a copy of this on Friday, I believe, from our legal, and And within that, it says that the board shall have charge, supervision, control of the juvenile detention center and all of its departments, the juvenile inmates, the appointment, selection of a director of the juvenile detention center, and generally regulate and control that department of the county's business. And I know we've had our director up here, and we were talking about the report that's presented to us, and that report does have a lot of detail to it. It does have 5 pages of detail to it, but it's primarily the statistical information we have for that current month. In other words, how many inmates, how many people have been there, how many classes have been taught. It has all that information. But what I can see from this board, and what I wanted to just mention to the fact, this board can be somewhat of a great help as far as a director is concerned, where problems that a director might have that she might need to, or he might need assistance with or have questions about, that from this board they can receive information to help further other details more so than what a county commission have answering questions about how many inmates and how many beds you've got full. You know, every month we sit here and look at litigations. How many that have been settled, how many are still we have here in this county. And we've just got through, as been stated right here, about the lawsuit we've gone through on this particular situation here. Now, I don't know about the rest of the commissioners sitting around this table tonight here, but I know myself as a commissioner, the phone calls I received in that situation. I know as a commissioner and what we went through with that as far as trying to show what was done and what we felt was the right things that was right. But yet we went through that for a long time. And I think everybody, from everything that happens, anything that happens, we can learn from it. And I think what we are attempting to do right here is to see what we can do to make things better. When you say transparency, everybody has heard that word continually recently. Everything wants to be as transparent as possible, and any way that we can do that. If this can be something we can do within our juvenile detention and help juveniles within Rutherford County and make it better, where we can have the public and anybody else. Now, we don't even have just the Rutherford County public. We had a newspaper that is on digital matter coming out of New York telling us what we're doing wrong in Rutherford County that caused a lot of this problem around here. We are no longer a county that's sitting right here dealing with just a county. We have the world that looks at us at different times, and it's important that we are transparent and doing what we can do at the best of our ability. And if a board can do that to make it better and even better, and can make our director even better, I'm all for it, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman Cush?
Not to take anything away from Commissioner Reed, but I got the sense from tonight's discussion and last month's discussion that no matter who was on this board, that ultimately, when a judge lays down an order, that order must be fulfilled. And this board cannot do anything against that order. So what I sense is all this board could do is, if the superintendent, Ms. Duke, or somebody like her in the future sees an abnormality or sees something that looks like that is not the right thing to do, they could raise their hand to the mayor, to public safety, or to this board. But the board, whether it's made up of attorneys or juvenile justice people that have retired and understand a little bit of the law, they have no bite. They have no power. They cannot change or overrule that judge's decision. All they can do is make it public. Am I right or wrong?
Well,
Nick, am I right or wrong?
I'll just say, Commissioner, if a judge issues an order, a non-judicial official cannot contravene that order.
So the board has absolutely no bite whatsoever.
Well,
So that's what I'm saying.
Are you
She could-
trying to say that the board, so you are completely relying just simply on the legality of a judicial order, but this board does a whole lot more than that.
I'm saying, what else does the board do besides do the physical bricks and mortar, right? They can't offer any legal service to the head of the juvenile justice because they have no power.
Well,
All
for
they can-
instance,
all
what
they
if,
can do
what if
is-
she's against a judicial order and it's in a gray area? And to protect the director, we would have a board that we would be able to go to the county attorney.
Why can't she or her predecessor, her future replacement, when she sees or he sees in the future, when they see an issue like that, why can't, instead of paying board members, because it says in your thing we're going to pay these people, if the board has no teeth, why can't they raise their hand, say, Mayor, there's something that's in the gray here that doesn't look cool. Call the mayor, call Nick, call public safety, and have the same discussion, because public safety has the same amount of teeth as this board does, which is about this much, 0. So why are we going to appoint a board of people who may or may not have juvenile history? How's that going to help us? That's why I voted no. It makes absolutely no sense to pay people who have no teeth to create a board that is not going to make things any more transparent than they are now.
So simply saying that hypothetically that the director should go to the mayor or the director should go to public safety, then who protects her?
Who protects her
What
now?
about somebody she don't want to lose her job,
Who
Mike?
protects her now?
Nobody.
And who's going to protect her then? A board that can hire and fire her?
Yes.
How's that protection?
Because if we, for instance, and I'm trying not to get into this matter because you're trying to get me into
Let's go back. Who's protecting her? If she has a problem, she goes to public safety.
Right.
She goes to the mayor. That's who protects her.
And the public safety
And
chairman.
how is a board in place going to be any different?
Because we have more people that we're going to have more qualified people to help her. It's, you got policy, you got building, you got other things.
You talked about a teacher being as perhaps one of the board members. How is a teacher going to help?
Well, how does the work center work, Mike?
We're not talking about the work center.
But it's the same
We're
situation.
not talking about.
It's the same thing that we're doing. The same thing.
Tell me how this board that we want to pay people to be on
now,
is
first,
going to help. Is going to help her.
Pay is just simply in there for the option to pay. We had no intentions of paying anybody.
That's what it says in your
But it's
three-page form.
It is an option for us to do it. It's in the word. It's in the contract. It doesn't mean that you automatically
All
get paid.
I'm asking a very simple question. Common sense. I'm a common sense guy. Does this board have the teeth to change what happened under Judge Davenport? Yes or no? Does it?
I'm going to say yes.
How? Show me how.
Because I think that if we had a board and we had somebody that said that our director feels that these procedures are not exactly the way they think it should be, then we could have went to the county attorney and at least had an opinion on that. Then, if we talk to, then we tell a judge that we don't think the law is being interpreted the way it's supposed to be interpreted, then maybe something would have happened right there.
Okay. We could have done the very same thing if somebody would have raised their hand and gone to the mayor, gone to Nick, or gone to public safety, with or without a board, correct?
And possibility of losing her job. How do you not see that? How do you not see you want to put so much pressure on somebody who comes forward?
So
If we had a board, we'd be able to protect
you're saying
that
if I
board.
do my job, I run the risk of getting fired? Who wants to work in an atmosphere like that anyway? And that's crazy of you to say you're afraid to open your mouth and fear getting fired. That's absolutely asinine.
That's no, Mike. That's total bull, and you know it. Number one, yes, it is. Number one, I'm simply saying we just said we're giving her a safety net. So if she disagrees, she has one person to deal with that. One person could fire her just over that. With a board, she'd be able to have somebody that'd be able to help her with a safety net on that, or him or her or whoever.
Which one person?
Yes. don't know, say that again?
In my heart, in my gut, this is wrong. Somebody needs to look at this. I don't understand what the difference is now, or you have 4 or 6 or 9 people on a board. Just no. You're putting a board together that has no bite, other than you're adding more people for her or he to say, look, we got a problem. Apparently, there's not enough, Nick's not enough, public safety's not enough. We want to put a board together for those people to manage. Power, maybe we can change it. The judge can change that.
So do you feel that the juvenile director, if she wanted help, that we as county commissioners shouldn't try to help her? Is that what you're saying? No. Well, then she just said that she would welcome this board that would help her.
We are here to help, and so is public safety.
And that's what we're doing.
No, you're trying to add another level of board on top of that for her to go to. What I'm saying is, why spend the money when you got us?
There is no money.
Okay.
It's just a stipulation in there, Mike. Mike, listen, we have voted, you voted. This committee has voted to send this to the county commission. Okay.
To add a board when you've got us already. Particularly if the board has no power to change anything.
Got it, noted. All right, any other business? I'm sorry, I got one more thing. Gentlemen, we had an oversight. We had a application for an alternate for Board of Equalization. We just found the application, so it is legit, and we need to vote on it. I'm going to ask Rob Mitchell to come up because this is his board as far as he deals with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have Mr. Shelby Hunton, who has served for the previous last 3 years as an alternate on the County Board of Equalization. We understood that he had gotten his information in, but he went back and graciously found it on an email and forwarded it over to me, and I forwarded it on to the mayor. We're not sure what happened to it, but I would ask that you reappoint him to serve another 2-year term as the alternate for the Rutherford County Board of Equalization.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we have one applicant for Board of Equalization alternate. Do we have a motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any other business? Seeing none, it's over.